Today in this episode, we're going to be talking about how trauma triggers binge eating. So you're constantly jumping from one diet to another. Diet, and then you binge eat. Diet, binge eat, diet, binge eat so frequently, and you can't understand why you're always binge eating. But in this video, we're gonna understand the deeper reason why you're binge eating. Because sure, maybe you might know that if you watch my previous videos, that binge eating is often triggered by physical restriction, mental restriction, and all or nothing mindset. And if you want to learn more about that, you can check this video out. But what's the deeper reason? Why is this all happening? The deepest reason, the root cause, could be trauma. And I'm gonna explain that in this video and why and how trauma triggered binge eating. And understanding trauma and how it triggers binge eating, the root causes, can help you unpack and also prevent binge eating episodes much later down the line. So first of all, let's briefly define the symptoms of trauma. Like, are you experiencing trauma? Are you a victim of trauma? So if you are, then this video is definitely for you. So symptoms could be, first of all, there are three types of trauma: physical, emotional, and psychological trauma. So physical trauma, some symptoms of physical trauma could be like chronic pain, IBS, fibromyalgia, fatigue, and easily being startled. Emotional trauma symptoms: feelings of guilt, agitation, edginess, you're always on edge, trouble regulating your emotions. Sometimes you get easily angry, sometimes you get easily scared, easily startled, easily disappointed. Psychological symptoms are anxiety disorders, depression, and maybe even having nightmares. You're struggling to sleep at night. Those could all be symptoms of trauma. And if you're experiencing binge eating and any of these symptoms of trauma, then this video is definitely for you. So before I continue on, I want to first of all introduce my 7-day food freedom course, which is completely free in the link in the description of this video. So the 7-day food freedom course covers how to overcome binge eating through mindfulness, uncovering and how to stop emotional eating, how to eat mindfully. So the 7-day food freedom course is completely free, and you'll be getting all of these highly edited, very amazing videos, which is an hour worth of free binge eating recovery content into your inbox. So we'll talk about mindful eating, how to stop emotional eating, how to stop binge eating, how to change your brain through neuroplasticity, permanent change into whatever goals you want. If you want to go to the gym like 3 times a week consistently, how do you set realistic goals? How to be more resilient? How to not be more vulnerable to binge eating, whether it's diet-wise or psychologically, all those kinds of things. So before I just keep on rambling on, because this is not the main part of the video, then check the link in the description and watch episode 1, which is completely free in the link in the description. You don't even have to sign up to watch episode 1. So now let's talk about how trauma actually triggers binge eating in the first place. So trauma oftentimes comes from something extremely stressful in life. So there could be lots of types of traumas, and I'm not gonna list a lot of them because some of them can actually get this video restricted. But essentially, there are lots of traumas. You can check them online, but you can tell if you're a victim from the symptoms I mentioned earlier. But the reason why we go to binge eat when we experience trauma is because oftentimes trauma is not something that we want to go into. It happens to ourselves. Maybe something happened when you were much younger. Maybe you're struggling with financial trauma, something you can't control. The main thing about trauma is it's an event that's extremely stressful and it's something you can't control. So you try your best to find control in your life. And where else can you find control in your life? Well, one thing that you can change, which can have a change in your physical appearance, and it can also change your mental mindset and the way you feel. You could feel better, you could feel worse, you can lose weight, you can gain weight. Something that you can control is diets. So when you have a lack of control in your life, something extremely stressful, you want to hold on to something which gives you a sense of control to make you feel like you can overcome this trauma. And the thing is, with diets, is it could lead into a beneficial aspect of getting better, getting stronger. It might feel like self-improvement. You're overcoming this trauma, but it's a risky slope. Trying to control too much of your diet, trying to control calories, control protein, fats, carbs, and fiber, trying to be too controlling and too pedantic, checking the tiny things like, did I have 3 grams of fiber with this meal? Did I have 4 grams of fiber with this meal? Oh, did I have this much calories? 900 calories? Did I have 1,200? Did I have 3,000? You're so focused on the little bits of things, which is a symptom of extreme trauma. If you're extremely focused on the little things, like the little things which can actually lead to eating disorders. Essentially, it's symptoms of an eating disorder, like trying to tidbits, trying to even check the tiniest amount of change in calories, trying to control your calories, trying to burn off those calories because you went to a birthday party and you ate some cake. Most of the people who are struggling with eating disorders oftentimes experience trauma in life, which is why people jump onto extreme restriction, extreme control, extreme like change and obsession with their body image, with their self-esteem, all those kinds of things. So trauma has a direct or strong correlation with eating disorders. And the real big problem here is in society, trauma is becoming more and more common. Maybe people are like raising their voices up about more trauma, or maybe people are experiencing more trauma than ever before. And there are lots of reasons for this. So it's probably because of like, if you're experiencing financial trauma, many people are saying you need to be an entrepreneur. Unless you're earning $1 million by before 30, then you're not successful enough. Many people are experiencing, I'm not gonna say the word, but you already know what I'm gonna say, which can get me like this video restricted, is that many people want better relationships. Like they want to get better girlfriend, and then they see another girlfriend, so they start cheating, and then more and more and more, and then people are being left behind, getting traumatized here, left, right, and center because of social media. And on top of that, dieting culture is telling us to be better. You have to be better, or else you're gonna be dumped, or you're not gonna earn enough, or you're not gonna be respected enough if you don't have a six-pack, if you don't try to lose weight, all those kinds of things. Your brain is primed to control things, because if you control things, if you control your body weight from what magazines and social media is telling you, if you control what you eat, if you try to eat perfectly, then you're gonna be a good personal trainer. You're gonna be getting those promotions, you're gonna be getting more followers, all those kinds of things. Your brain is primed to escape trauma, get that dopamine, try to be loved more by others, get more affirmations from other people, respect from other people, because that's what dieting can give you. All you have to do is just control yourself, and then that's it. Because of all of this, all the pressure, which is extremely immense, this can actually lead to emotional instability. If you haven't got emotional instability from trauma, then jumping onto diets can or will very likely lead to even more emotional instability, or trigger the start of emotional instability, because you're having this on or off mindset. Good, bad, clean, dirty, angelic. Did I binge? Did I not? Am I diet? Am I on not diet? Am I on track? Off track? Am I eating perfectly or not? Clean, organic? There's so many labels. It's so stressful, and it could lead to emotional instability and lots of stress. That can lead to binge eating. That's one thing. It can also lead to emotional eating. It can also lead to very, very poor coping mechanisms. Many people who struggle with trauma and very disordered eating habits struggle with like alcohol. They could struggle with a very unhealthy mindset with drugs and all those kinds of things. I'm trying my best not to get restricted in this video, but you can see how it can actually lead into a whole set of really unhealthy coping mechanisms. And food is one way of coping with stress in your life. Food is a coping mechanism, but the problem is, like, food can be a coping mechanism, but there's nothing wrong with that. But it becomes a problem when food is your only coping mechanism. It's a problem when alcohol is your only coping mechanism. It's a massive problem if drugs is your only way of coping with difficult emotions, difficult times, emotional instability. You don't have any other way of coping with all these kinds of things. And as I'm talking about all of these coping mechanisms, I want to actually also like bring up and plug the link in the description. I have a free coping mechanisms ebook, healthy coping mechanisms ebook that isn't food, that isn't alcohol, that isn't drugs. It's free to download, and there's probably like 100 different types of coping mechanisms I have in that ebook, which are all separated into sensory type of coping mechanisms and many more. It's broken down into many different kinds of categories, so you choose your best coping mechanism which is best for you. So check that in the link in the description of this video. So this lack of control, emotional instability, and wanting to control things can actually lead to this thing called alexithymia. So alexithymia is the numbing of your emotions, that you can't really experience what you're feeling. If someone was to ask you right now, oh Jonathan, how are you feeling? Because it's a very British thing where I'm living right now to say like, oh, how are you? I'm good, fine, thank you. How are you? Oh, what do you feel? If someone was to ask you, what are you feeling right now? You might be saying, yeah, I'm feeling fine. Well, fine is not an emotion. Oh, I'm feeling stressed. The thing is, stressed is not an emotion. What are you feeling? Are you feeling scared? Are you feeling frustrated? Are you feeling embarrassed? Are you feeling anxious? Are you happy? Are you angry? All those kinds of things. So we can really struggle with alexithymia, which is the lack of really understanding what emotions are we feeling. There's so many things that trauma and binge eating and dieting culture can really do to mess up with our brains. So it might seem a little bit hopeless at the moment, but here's a solution. So first step, of course, is to undo all of these trauma that happened when you were younger. So I highly recommend going to a therapist, first of all, to undo any of this trauma, because unless you undo and untangle all of these knots, remember, you're experiencing trauma, you've experienced trauma. Just because you're not experiencing them, like maybe a difficult person who you've broken up with is away from your life, that doesn't mean the trauma's gone. It's actually ingrained into your mind. It's actually ingrained into your nervous system, into your brain. There are neural connections because of this trauma. You have to untangle those knots through therapy, and whatever they do in therapy, CBT, DBT, all those kinds of things, then that can be done from, first of all, therapy. So you can remove these neural links and take back control. That's not a way, that's not something like dieting. Dieting is a poor way to take back control because you're not actually taking control. It's still in your brain. It's only a coping mechanism to this trauma, dieting, trying to lose weight. But now let's move on to the diet aspect. So let's assume that you're gonna go to therapy, or you're thinking of going to therapy, because I'm a dietitian, I'm not a therapist. So the therapist could deal with all of those kinds of things to undo all of those trauma with you, which I highly recommend. But now I'm going to talk about the diet to undo trauma-related binge eating. So first of all, we need to recognize the 3 triggers to binge eating, and I'm going to recap this because 3 main triggers to binge eating are written in this video over here. But to recap, 3 main triggers. Number 1 is physical restriction. So are you under eating? Are you eating less than what your body needs? So if your maintenance is 2000 calories, are you eating 1800 calories? Or are you eating maybe 500 calories? Are you trying to be on a very restrictive diet? You're eating very, very little calories because you're trying to undo your binge, or you want to rush weight loss really quickly, all those kinds of things. Another way physical restriction could also manifest itself is, are you skipping meals? Are you skipping breakfast? Are you skipping lunch? Are you only having 1 meal a day? Because that can trigger cravings for binge eating. So the second trigger is mental restriction. So with physical restriction, that's more focused on being full, but mental restriction is focused on being satisfied. So are you full and satisfied? Because I could be full. I can eat chicken, broccoli, and rice.
Point of eating broccoli and chicken breast and white rice 7 days a week.
And it's been 5 months of broccoli, chicken breast, and that kind of stuff. And
It was about 9 months of chicken breast and broccoli.
You know, you just have to eat a ton of calories. And it was all hard calories. It was a lot of chicken breast.
To make it more realistic for me, I can eat chicken, broccoli, and quinoa, which I really, really hate altogether, but many people associate that with clean foods, dieting foods. So that's filling. It's volume eating. It's filling, but for me, it's extremely not satisfying. I'm not going to enjoy it compared to if I was going to have it with, let's say, if I transform it into egg fried rice with chicken, garlic, teriyaki, and steamed broccoli. I'm really going to enjoy that. I just transformed that into a meal that's filling and satisfying. You might be thinking right now, what about chocolates? What about cakes? So when you're binge eating, it's easy to jump onto all of these kinds of things, but remember, you need to be full and satisfied at the same time. So if you're worried about introducing chocolates and cake, which you really love, then try to introduce it as a dessert. So when you're maybe really close to being full, then you're much less likely to have a binge eating episode on 20 cookies if you finished a main meal. So introduce it as a dessert. Try to implement regular eating and try to avoid being on a very restrictive diet, because binge eating is a sign that you have to put dieting on hold. You've gone too far. Your body thinks it's in a famine, so put your body on hold from dieting, be in a maintenance, be full and satisfied regularly, and then see if you binge eat anymore. If you don't binge eat, then you can continue on with your sustainable diet, or maybe you don't want to go on diet at all. But binge eating, if you're binge eating frequently, it's a clear sign your body's on high alert. You're fighting against your body. You're not working with your body to lose weight anymore. You can't win. That's why many people fail dieting, because they're constantly binge eating, which is a survivalistic famine response to starvation. So the 3 main triggers to binge eating: physical restriction, mental restriction, and the third one is the all or nothing mindset. So the all or nothing mindset can often come from trauma, but you're calling foods good and bad, clean and dirty, sinful, angelic. So you're adding morality to foods. The problem here is it can trigger binge eating, is because if you eat a food that is bad, then you attribute it with your self-worth. You self-internalize it. You call yourself bad. You're unworthy. So you tell yourself, binge eat. I've ruined everything. I'm the worst person in the world. I have no self-esteem. I don't deserve anything in life. I don't deserve to lose weight. Your brain starts to spiral into all of these kinds of negative thoughts. So that can trigger binge eating, the all or nothing mindset. Another way that the all or nothing mindset could present itself in this way called the Last Supper mindset. So you stick to a diet Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then maybe stick to it on Saturday, and then Sunday you accidentally eat a bit of chocolate because, well, that's bad food, most people would call. You eat the chocolate and you think to yourself, oh, I ruined it now. Might as well have a massive binge eating episode and try to get as much enjoyment now. And then I promise to myself, on Monday I'll stick to diet. Let's enjoy everything while we can, as if it's a Last Supper, and then jump on to a diet on Monday. So that's how the all or nothing mindset could trigger binge eating. So we need to be full satisfied and not have a all or nothing mindset around food, or else we're gonna trigger binge eating episodes. If you want a whole video explaining that, then check this video out over here. So those are the 3 triggers to binge eating, the dietary point of view. But you know how I mentioned in this video that trauma can actually make you alexithymic? So alexithymic is making you numb to your emotions. You don't even know what you're feeling. And when you're numb to your emotions, as I mentioned with trauma, then if you're numbing your emotions, later on you're gonna be extremely vulnerable in the evenings to emotional eating. And then you start a binge eating episode because you're left alone with your thoughts. Maybe you had a very stressful day at work, and then your boss has been shouting at you. You've been overworked, underpaid, working overtime, and then your spouse is maybe really annoyed with you. You're feeling unworthy, you've gained weight, you feel terrible, and then when you're alone, nothing to distract you aside from TV, then everything all hits you at once. You start to emotionally eat. You start to trigger binge eating episodes. And the risky thing with this is that when you're having binge eating episodes, you're mindlessly eating. So the opposite of binge eating episodes or mindless eating is mindful eating. So we need to practice mindful eating. So how do we practice mindful eating to not be alexithymic? So the first thing is, when you feel a difficult emotion and you feel like, oh, I really don't like to feel this way, I want you to pause, breathe slowly, like in and out, in through your nose and out through your mouth, in through your nose for a shorter amount of time and longer amount of time from your mouth. So maybe like 4 seconds in your nose and then a slow release from outside of your mouth. So maybe 4 seconds in your nose and then out from your mouth for 8 seconds, double the time. What happens here is when you're feeling difficult emotions, your brain is really heightened. Adrenaline is kicking in really intensely. So when you're breathing in shorter than you are breathing out through your mouth, then you're actually triggering the rest and digest mode, not the fight or flight mode. So when you're feeling difficult emotions, start breathing and then use this color wheel, which I'm going to show up into the screen, of what emotions am I feeling right now. Remember, stressed is not an emotion. Feeling tired is not an emotion. Am I feeling scared? Am I frustrated? Am I embarrassed? Am I scared? Am I disappointed in myself? All those kinds of things. Find what you're feeling right now in this emotional color wheel, and then every time you try to recognize your emotions, then that could be already enough to break binge eating episodes. Maybe just recognizing what you're feeling. Being alexithymic is correlated with being easy to trigger binge eating episodes. But if you recognize what emotions you're feeling, maybe you already know what you need to soothe those emotions. You just understand what your body needs, and it might be giving some sort of reassurance actually if you recognize what emotions am I feeling right now. And then once you recognize your feelings and maybe you're still urging to binge eat even after recognizing your feelings, then what I highly recommend is to practice what's called urge surfing. So when we want to binge eat, we actually sometimes prepare for our binges. We start buying food, we start ordering food deliveries, and then okay, let's get ready to binge eat. There's no chance that I could like break through this urge. You just give up. But that's actually untrue. So urge surfing is the final line of defense, shall I say. So urge surfing is the idea that urges, they only last for 30 minutes and then they disappear. So all you have to do is to distract yourself with a coping mechanism. And remember, once again, use any of the coping mechanisms from my coping mechanism ebook, which is free to download in the link in the description. 100, not hundreds, that's too many coping mechanisms. 100 or so coping mechanisms which you can use that is not unhealthy and which is not self-destructive. So implement urge surfing, and the more you're doing this, every time you get the urge to binge eat, implement the coping mechanisms such as having a nice warm or hot bath or a nice relaxing cold shower, and maybe put a nice podcast on using maybe your Bluetooth speakers when you're just relaxing. I do that.
You do a minute or 3 minutes of a cold or getting the ice bath or whatever it is, you get this huge long-lasting surge in dopamine that sets your mood and your positivity for hours and hours. This has been shown by data.
If I'm really stressed, I have a nice warm shower and I put on my shower Bluetooth speakers on, which are water resistant, and I could put a nice podcast on, nice and relaxing. It really relaxes me, and it's a nice coping mechanism that's not self-destructive from my point of view. And when you do this, come back and review. Do you still have the urge to binge eat after 30 minutes? Or maybe you still have the urge to binge eat, and maybe you do binge eat, but the thing is that you've broken the gap, you've extended the gap. When you have an urge to binge eat, you have urge and then action. There is no gap in between. But the more you implement urge surfing, you have the urge and then maybe there's a gap where you're trying to hold it off and then action. The more you implement urge surfing, the gap actually widens, and then you have more breathing space to actually break this urge to binge eat, which is actually a very healthy coping mechanism, which you can implement to many other things. If you've experienced trauma, then you probably might be very used to drinking alcohol, smoking, drugs. Try to implement urge surfing, because urge surfing was originally used for people who were trying to overcome smoking and alcohol. So So urge surfing is a really helpful skill for also like binge eating. It's a helpful skill to use and implement everywhere. So use different coping mechanisms from the link in the description of my coping mechanism ebook. So try to focus on trying to extend the gap between urge and action. And now moving on to the final solution to overcoming trauma-related binge eating is really important, is to eat a nourished diet. And it sounds really simple, but it's important that when we're binge eating, we need to realize that when we're in feast or famine, a majority of our diet is actually ultra-processed unhealthy foods, which is not very beneficial for our gut microbiome. So when you're having binge eating episodes, you don't binge eat on fruits and vegetables, you binge eat on ultra-processed foods, sugar-sweetened foods as well, foods which are really rich in saturated fats, all those kinds of things, very high in sugar, salt. And whilst I preach moderation, having binge eating episodes, feast or famine, is wrecking your gut microbiome. It's either feast or famine, starvation, or things which are very unhealthy and not nourishing to your gut microbiome, so which can lead to dysbiosis. So there's lots and lots and lots of research which is emerging that if you have a positive gut microbiome, a very thriving, well-thriving gut microbiome, then this can actually improve your mental health. It can improve your appetite and fullness signaling. People actually can lose weight effortlessly, studies show, if you have a good gut microbiome. So what can you do and how does this actually work? So the thing is, to have a very positive and thriving gut microbiome, which can improve your mental health, regulate your appetite, reduce binge eating episodes, and not be reliant on sugar and all those kinds of things, you need to focus on fiber. So where is fiber found? So fiber is found in like brown foods, so brown rice, brown pasta, brown flakes, all those kinds of things. Seeded bread, brown bread as well. And it can be found in like fruits and vegetables, seeds, nuts, beans, lots of those kinds of things. If you can try to implement more of a Mediterranean style diet where you're trying to have lots of beans, reduce sugar, ultra processed foods, crisps, cakes, cookies and donuts, and have more of a nourished diet which is high in fiber, this can actually like improve your gut microbiome and improve your mental health. Studies show that if you have a positive, thriving gut microbiome, then this can actually overcome trauma paired with therapy, and it's much, much more effective overcoming trauma with therapy and diet changes. Because what actually happens here is, how it actually works is, fiber is not actually absorbed in your gut. It's not broken down and absorbed and that's it, like normal food, like carbohydrates, protein and fats and cookies and all those kinds of things. It goes through your body, but what happens is it goes through your body undigested. You don't absorb it, but our gut microbiome actually breaks it down, tries to chomp on it, it tries to eat on it. And when the gut microbiome, your gut bacteria shall I say, actually chomp on it, it actually produces what's called short chain fatty acids. And the short chain fatty acids actually improve gut signaling, improve immunity, and improve your mental health, improve hormone signaling, which can actually improve your mental health by actually a number of factors. There's 100 different factors which can a positive gut microbiome can actually benefit you from. So I'm actually like freezing every now and then because there's 100 things I can list which will take this video forever. But in a nutshell, if I can like summarize all of this, a positive gut microbiome can improve your mental health and your trauma related to binge eating, because serotonin, the feel-good hormone, is actually produced in our gut. So if we have a very good gut microbiome, we're feeding our brain to produce even better serotonin release, feel-good hormones, to overcome trauma, to overcome a low mood and self-esteem and poor binge eating, to be more in tune with our emotions, 100 different things. I'm overwhelmed by the kinds of things that I have in my mind that a positive gut microbiome can actually benefit you from. But all I can say is, have more fiber in your diet. Make sure your meals are focused on at least a minimum of 5 a day of fruits and vegetables. And I'm not saying have 5 fruits, 5 apples in one go and that will cover it. You need a variety. Your gut microbiome runs on a variety to produce lots of prebiotics, and variety will actually contain lots of probiotics, which can actually improve your mental health, improve hormone signaling, improve hunger and appetite signaling, fullness and satiety signaling. It can improve 100 different things. I'm overwhelmed by all the benefits of the gut microbiome right now, so I'm gonna stop talking about it right now, but it can actually improve tons of things and reduce binge eating episodes. So anyway, I hope you really enjoyed this video. I've been on to a whole rant during this video, but first of all, if you want to untangle all of those knots, I highly recommend that you speak to a therapist to untangle those knots. And from a dietary point of view, improve your fiber intake, put dieting on hold if you're binge eating, and eat regular meals. Be full and satisfied and eat lots of fiber. Then you'll see a massive improvement in your binge eating episodes and into your mental health. And if you really enjoyed this video, I highly recommend that you check this one into why you can't stop thinking about food all the time, and I'll see you in that video. So once again, check the link in the description for all my freebies, and I'll see you in this video. See ya!